Gentleman Puppy and the Beautiful Cow. Gentleman Puppy awoke with the fresh mountain air in his lungs and nose. He laid in bed a little while longer. He had had quite the long walk up the mountain yesterday, and he could still feel his body ache in many a different place. But he liked the feeling of it, the ache of having done a good workout, a good night's work, so to speak. And so while he lay there, he slowly opened his eyes, rolled to his side and looked out in the window. And already there he saw a couple of trees, and above that a majestic mountain spire rising up to the heavens, covered all in white. It was breathtaking. Gentleman Puppy had never really seen a lot of mountains in his life. So when a friend invited him to have a quick and short holiday, he of course immediately accepted. He had spent the last 3 days going up the one mountain and down the other. He loved the feeling of it, the way how he used his bodies in ways he wasn't used to. Of course, when he was by himself, he took runs up and down and felt invigorated every single time he came back. You could get used to this to a certain extent. It's definitely something he was going to try again, that's for sure. And so while he sat down at the table, his friend already brewed him some nice tea and had breakfast ready. They sat down and started eating. His friend was talking to Gentleman Puppy and saying something about some weird cows they've been seeing around in the valley up in the next town. He said the locals were telling weird stories about how the cows randomly appeared out of nowhere and nobody could figure out which farmer they belonged to. And so while they didn't have anything planned for the day, Gentleman Puppy said, "How about we go investigate?" The friend simply laughed and said, "Sure, why not? I know you good enough to know that I can't change your mind anyways when there's a mystery around." And so while they took their time and finished their breakfast, they took their bikes and went out on quite the ride. Took them a little bit more than they anticipated. Gentleman Puppy wasn't that used to using bikes on mountains. And so it took them an hour or two until they came to the correct town, and they simply strolled through and had some delicious local food, some Kaiserschmallen or some sort. He was a trouble pronouncing these kind of words. It didn't take them long before they found somebody talking about the mysterious cows, and so they asked them where they were last seen and went out. It took them about another hour before they reached the valley they were supposed to have been, and the sun was shining, the birds were chirping, and in the farness, Gentleman Puppy, using his excellent hearing, could hear the bells of the cows. So invigorated, they both started walking, and before they knew it, they saw the cows all the way down into the valley. And of course, they couldn't really see the cows that well as of yet. And so they trundled down, but there wasn't really a path or a small path, so to speak, one that wasn't used regularly and so was overgrown. So it took them quite a long while before they managed to get down. The sun had already passed its midpoint a long time ago. About the time they were walking down, his friend seemed a little bit upset, so to speak, and so Gentleman Puppy asked him what's wrong. And the friend said, "It's something off with these cows. It's almost like they don't behave like cows." Gentleman Puppy looked down and he couldn't really see a difference. He wasn't used to seeing these kind of cows in mountains, so he had no idea what was normal and what was not. And so they simply went on down. Gentleman Puppy paid a little bit closer attention to the cows, just to see what was going on. And on closer sight, when they could see the cows more clearly, Gentleman Puppy had to admit the cows were behaving in a strange way. They weren't eating grass, they kept looking around themselves all the time, as if they were expecting a predator or some sorts. But the way they were looking, it was disconcerting. It was almost intelligent in a way, not efficient, but intelligent. Gentleman Puppy got a cold shiver down his spine, yet he didn't feel any foreboding or bad feelings, so he didn't think too much of it, and they walked down and went down. They entered a small wood area, so while they went down into the valley, they couldn't see the cows anymore yet. When they walked out of the forest, they were startled, for the cows were right there, not even a meter away, and Gentleman Puppy was not a puppy to be easily frightened, yet he knew cows could be quite dangerous. And so he gave a quick jump back, and the cow did as well. And his friend simply stood there. So weird. I've never seen a cow jump like that. And so Gentleman Puppy composed himself again and simply looked at the cows, and there in the middle was the most beautiful cow he had ever seen. It was a beautiful creature. He immediately felt a weird kind of attraction. It was strange. It's almost like if this cow was more, it was almost like the attraction he would feel for a beautiful woman, yet this was obviously a cow. He's almost worried about his own mental health at this point, when he realized his friend was very much feeling the same way. And so they slowly approached the cows and started investigating, checking the hooves, the bells, the fur, to see if anything was amiss. And while they did this, Gentleman Puppy, of course, did what he always does. He slowly started humming a song. He didn't even know it of himself that he used to do this, yet everyone that knew him by this. He would always start humming random songs. And while Gentleman Puppy was humming along, a peculiar thing happened. One of the cows was making a really weird kind of sound. Very much unlike a cow, yet it didn't seem like it was hurting or bleeding or anything of that. And at some point, Gentleman Puppy's friend simply went, "Wow, I think he might be, or better word, she might be trying to sing with you, Gentleman Puppy." Gentleman Puppy was amazed at that. He had never heard of such a thing of any animal, let alone a cow, let alone a beautiful cow like this. So he tried it out and he hummed a different song and the cow sang. Well, sang is a big word, but made different sounds. So Gentleman Puppy indeed was convinced. He simply looked at his friend and said, "That's impossible. Cows are not supposed to have that kind of intelligence or control of their voice. There's something really strange going on here." And so they sat there and they tried out different songs and tried communicating with the cows on a whim. Tried for a long time until the sun was already starting to set. It slipped on both of them. They didn't realize, and now the friend was like, "I guess we'll have to stay the night here." Gentleman Puppy looked at him, "But why?" His friend was, "There is no way that we can go up that mountain and down again in the dark. That would be a quite foolhardy undertaking. Let's just try and find the elm somewhere here in this valley." So they did, and the cows followed until they came to a certain outcropping of trees, and the cows stopped following them, and they started moving quite loudly though. And Puppy found it quite strange, almost like a cry for help yet again. Yet it couldn't be, and so they kept on moving, and they both finally found the elm after half an hour and went down and explained the situation, and after enduring a 15-minute rant of the elderly lady about how stupid they were, she gave them all a room, a good hearty meal, and they settled in for the night. Yet the cows could not get out of the mind of Gentleman Puppy. And so in the night he crept back and came to the clearing in the valley yet again, and there indeed were the cows still waiting. Gentleman Puppy simply started talking to himself as much as to the cow, trying to figure out what was going on here. He kept telling to the cow, "What is up with you? How is it that you have this kind of beauty, that you have this kind of attractiveness, that you have the intelligence to sing along with me? What is wrong with you?" On a whim, he decided to try something else, something he didn't dare do when his friend was there, because it was quite silly looking it away. He simply looked the cow in the eyes, held her gaze, and told her, "If you understand anything I tell you, just nod your head." And at that point, the cow nodded her head. Gentleman Puppy was stunned. He fell on his back hind, sat in lotus position, and simply started talking away. How did you understand me? How did you learn English? And of course, mid-sentence he stopped himself, knowing that there was no way for the cow to talk back. And so he started asking the cow questions. Where are you from? Are you from this country, from that country? Are you from this farmer, that farmer? Have you always been this intelligent? Yes, no questions. It took him a long time, but at some point, another whim or hunch, so to speak, he asked the cow, "Are you under a spell?" And the cow nodded her head vigorously, more than he had seen her do any time. Gentleman Puppy was, how can I free you? Is there a spell I can do? And the cow nodded her head again. And Gentleman Puppy thought to himself, do I have to do something? The cow nodded her head. Is there like a spell, an incantation? The cow nodded her head. Is there a word? Gentleman Puppy saw the cow nod her head again, and he was captivated by such a mystery. He tried narrowing down the word, but there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of words. At this point, he didn't even know if he needed a word, a sentence, a book, or a vowel. And so he simply started firing away. Avacadabra, hocus pocus, released the curse. Random words he learned at a Wicca workshop at some point. He tried some Latin, for the Harry Potter fans, and nothing worked. And so the cow seemed desperate, as was Gentleman Puppy, and at some point Gentleman Puppy was feeling his stomach growl, and he said, "You know what? All of this questioning has made me quite hungry. What I wouldn't give for a banana right now." And as soon as the words had left his lips, it started getting extremely hot. The snow started melting and the cow started radiating, shining in the night, slowly becoming more and more bright. Gentleman Puppy was too captivated to even feel scared, and so he simply sat there, watching this cow going nuclear. The light was blinding and blinding, until he couldn't even look at the cow anymore. The beautiful cow, it almost seemed like she was getting smaller, but he had to avert his eyes. This went on for quite a while, until the light shone down and Gentleman Puppy looked and saw one of the most beautiful women he had ever seen, lying naked on the ground. It was a perfect round circle around her, where the snow had all molten away. Gentleman Puppy walked towards her, and all thought of the mystery forgotten for the safe keeping of this woman that now laid there. quickly checked if she was doing okay, and she simply got up on her knees and started hugging Gentleman Puppy, sobbing endlessly and thanking him for saving him. It took a while, and after Gentleman Puppy gave his coat to her and got her a little bit warmed, she did her story. She was from a neighboring village. There was a man there, a man who wanted to possess her, who wanted her to love, but she thought that he was an evil man, and so she never could love him. She spurned him and she scorned him after he did horrible things, trying to gain her heart. And so, having been ridiculed by the village, he cast an evil spell over her. Well, if you think that I am an ugly cow, how about you be a cow? I thought nothing of it at the time, yet a couple of days later when I woke up, I was one. Didn't even realize the first day or two until I saw a small puddle and I saw my reflection. And ever since then, I've been trying to change myself back. And Gentleman Puppy asked her, "Who is this man who did this to you?" And she simply smiled wanly and sadly. "Don't have to worry about him. He actually died. A day after he probably put the curse on me. He was killed in a traffic accident." Don't think anyone would ever believe me, would they? Gentleman Puppy laughed and said, "No, I don't think so. I think we'll have to keep this our little secret." She smiled and he lifted her up in his arms and he walked back to the elm. After that whole adventure and having to explain to the woman in the elm how he came to be with a naked woman in his arms, less alone to his friend, he spent some time afterwards trying to figure out who the man was and where he got his powers. Yet he never managed to find out anything more than him being a normal man. But after that, every single time, usually at least once a year, Gentleman Puppy would go back to the mountains, visit his friend and the most beautiful cow in the world. And with that, Gentleman Puppy's story is over. Sweet dreams.